All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to tackle something that probably hits a little too close to home for, well, most of us. I mean, really think about it for a second. When your friend messes up, you give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Family, same thing. But ourselves? Oh, that's a whole different story. We have this completely separate, way tougher rule book just for us. So what gives? Why are we our own biggest bully? And look, this isn't just a hunch or a feeling we all have. The data here is, well, it's pretty staggering. A whopping 86% of young adults say they're unhappy with their own bodies. 86%. That's not some niche little problem. That is practically a universal experience. So, let's really dig into this weird hypocrisy, where we have one set of standards for everyone else and this impossibly harsh one just for ourselves. Man, this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? From the time we're kids, it's all about be kind, share your toys, be polite. But being kind to yourself, that lesson seems to get skipped like every single time. And before you know it, being hard on yourself just becomes second nature. Okay, to really get a grip on how deep this rabbit hole goes, we've got to look at this one study. It's fascinating and honestly a little unsettling. It really pulls back the curtain on just how biased we are against ourselves. So the setup was actually pretty simple. Researchers had people listen to a bunch of different voice recordings. All they had to do was rate how attractive they found each voice. Easy enough, right? But here's the kicker. Without them knowing, the researchers snuck in a recording of the person's own voice. And what they found is just wild. When people didn't realize they were listening to their own voice, they actually rated it as more attractive than the others. Can you believe that? That inner critic, that self-judgment, it only switches on the moment we know we're looking in the mirror, so to speak. So, wait a second. This flips everything on its head, right? It means we don't inherently dislike ourselves. We learn to do it. So the big question is, who or what is teaching us? Well, to find the answer, we have to go way, way back into our evolutionary wiring. It turns out our brains are not optimized for happiness. Nope. They're built for one thing above all else: survival. And a massive part of that survival kit is something called a negativity bias. We're literally wired for it. There's a cool term for this in psychology, the hedonic treadmill. Think of it like this. You get a huge promotion, you buy that dream car, you even win the lottery. You feel amazing for a little while. But then, pretty quickly, you're right back to your normal baseline level of happiness. The good feelings just don't stick around. There was a famous study that really drives this home. They looked at lottery winners and, on the other end of the spectrum, people who'd been in paralyzing accidents. For the lottery winners, that spike in happiness, it faded pretty fast. But for the accident victims, the negative impact was way more intense, and it stuck around for much, much longer. It proves a key point. Our brains give way more weight to the bad stuff than the good stuff. And you can feel this in your own life, right? Just ask yourself this simple question. What stings more, losing $5, or what feels better, finding $5? Be honest. For pretty much everyone, the pain of losing it is way more powerful than the joy of finding it. See? That's your negativity bias, right there in action. So why on earth are we wired this way? Well, from an evolutionary point of view, it actually makes total sense. Imagine you're one of our ancient ancestors. The one who's constantly worried about that rustle in the bushes, that's the one who doesn't get eaten. The one who obsesses over what the rest of the tribe thinks, that's the one who doesn't get kicked out. Because back then, being rejected by the group wasn't just embarrassing, it was a death sentence. But okay, our ancient wiring is only half of the puzzle. Our modern culture then comes along and pours gasoline on this little fire. It takes that built-in negativity and doubles down, teaching us a very specific lesson. Your value isn't a given. Nope, you have to earn it. Psychologists call this conditional positive regard. It's a fancy term for a really simple and kind of damaging idea. Love and acceptance aren't free. They're conditional. You get them if you get the A+, if you land the big job, if you fit into a certain size. You're constantly having to prove you're worthy. And what happens when you grow up swimming in that water? You become an expert at blaming yourself. When you inevitably fall short of these crazy standards, you don't think, hey, maybe these standards are ridiculous. No, you think, see, I knew it. There's something wrong with me. So you've got this 1-2 punch, right? the pressure from our ancient brain, and the pressure from modern society. And all that pressure creates this deep crack right down the middle of our psyche. It literally splits us into different competing selves. And of course, psychologists have a theory for this too. It's called self-discrepancy theory. And the core idea is pretty mind-blowing. You aren't just one single you. You're actually juggling 3 different versions of yourself all the time. So here's how it breaks down. First, there's the actual self. This is just who you are right here, right now. The good, the bad, the whole package. Then you've got the ideal self. This is your dream version of you, the person you really want to be. And finally, there's the ought self. And this one's the tricky one. This is the person you think you should be based on what you think everyone else wants from you. Now here's the problem. For most of us, these 3 selves are not living in harmony. They're at war. And that gap, that space between who you are and who you think you ought to be, that is ground zero for all the bad feelings. That gap is where shame, anxiety, and that relentless inner critic are born. So, okay, we've gone through evolution, culture, deep psychology. You'd think the solution would have to be some super complicated 12-step plan, right? But it's not. The answer is actually incredibly simple. It's just a fundamental shift in how you look at things. It's this. Start seeing yourself the way you already see other people. That's it. That's the whole game. Just apply the same rule book you use for everyone else to yourself. Because when you do that, something amazing happens. You start giving yourself a break. You're more forgiving when you mess up. You're more understanding of why you struggle sometimes. You're just kinder. And you start to see that those ridiculously high standards you've been chasing, they were never realistic to begin with. They were a trap. So, I'll just leave you with this one thought. That nasty voice in your head, the one that's always criticizing you, that's not the real you. It's just old programming. The real you is the part that knows how to be a good friend, the part that shows compassion to others. So, what if you just try to be a friend to yourself? What would change?